call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Although members of the board are not gathered in a central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by video conference. Please say here when I call your name. Tony Hosso.
Here.
Sandy Huey. Sandy Huey. I see, Sandy, that you're online, but you're still muted. There you go. Can you say here, Sandy Huey? Okay, I can't hear you, but I see that your mic's unmuted. I'm going to go to Sandy Winkley. Sandy Winkley, can you unmute, please? Can y'all hear me? Everybody unmute for a minute, please, because nobody's responding.
I can hear you.
Okay.
There you go. It was locked. It would not let me unmute. This is Sandy Winkley. I'm here.
Okay, Sandy Winkley, I've got you here. Sandy Huey, are you unmuted? There's a problem with your mic. Okay, Terry Williams.
Here.
David Byer.
Here.
Omar Leos.
Here.
Dr. Sean Micah.
Here.
Okay, I can see that Huey is on, but can't hear her. So I'm going to continue going. We are meeting by Zoom software, which allows two-way communication for members of the public. Due to bandwidth requirements, we have the video portion of Zoom unavailable. As we would at any in-person meeting, members of the public who have followed the instructions on the meeting notice for registering to speak to an agenda item or during the matters from the floor section of the agenda will be unmuted for 3 minutes to speak. If you signed up to speak, please make sure you have followed the instructions on the agenda to join the meeting. If the speaker submitted written comments in advance, Sandy Huey will read the comments into record before the board's consideration of that item. All other meeting procedures will adhere to board-adopted procedures to the extent practicable. An audio recording of this meeting is being made and will be available to the public at a later date. The board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Texas Government Code Section 551.071, private consultation with the board's attorney. 551.072, discussing purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. 551.074, to discuss personnel or to hear complaints against personnel. And the time is 5:33. Okay, the board will now reconvene into open session and the time is 6 o'clock. Item 4, matters from executive session. A, personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments pursuant to Government Code Section 551.074. 1, possible action regarding routine personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments, no action. B, possible action regarding purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property pursuant to Government Code Section 551.072, no action. C, possible action regarding consultation with board's attorney pursuant to Government Code Section 551.071. 1, pending and or possible litigation, no action. Item 5, new business for possible board action. A, board operating procedures. 1, possible action regarding updated board operating procedures. I noticed that we have someone who has signed up to speak to this agenda item. So I'm going to read the section from the matters from the floor. The trustees welcome comments from members of the public during this time of the meeting. Generally, board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting, although members may request further information or a future agenda item on a matter raised during public comment. As explained fully in the board's written procedures for this time, the matters from the floor portion is a limited public forum. Accordingly, speakers may present on a topic related to district business for up to 3 minutes, but are not permitted to make 1, personal complaints about an individual staff or board member that should be raised using the district's grievance policies. 2, a personnel action. 3, a student disciplinary matter. 4, a complaint about a particular student. 5, or pending litigation. Any person who persists in speaking on these topics after being directed not to do so will lose the remainder of their time to speak and may lose their privilege of addressing the board at future meetings. We also welcome written comments at any time, either through email at board@neisd.net or by mail, care of the superintendent's office at 8961 Tesoro Drive, 6th floor, San Antonio, Texas, 78217. Ms. Huey.
Mike Osborne.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to remind the board that the audio recording should be placed or posted, as with all video meetings, in accordance with the Secretary of State's.
We need the address, please.
In accordance with the Secretary of State's dictates for public access, not solely on a per request basis, per your announcement, posted announcement, and specifically stated. What was your question?
Would you please state your address for the record?
I'm sorry, I entered it into the posting.
It is our procedures that we have you state your name and address when you speak.
Sure, I'm sorry, you called on me. My name's Michael Osborne. I live at 13622 Stony Hill.
Thank you.
Now, do you want me to start over?
Please.
I'd like to remind the board that the audio recordings should be posted, as with all video meetings, in accordance with Secretary of State's dictates for public access, not solely on a per request basis, per the posted announcement, and as specifically stated and emphasized in your opening remarks. I did not see any posting of the updated board operating procedures that are referred to for possible action. I was wondering how this achieves transparency. I was curious about the impetus for updated operating procedures, considering that the board has no committees or working meetings, and how these updates are formulated. It's hard to comment on something until given the light of day. Therefore, I'll wait until the reading of the proposed changes and a second and the discussion period for comments. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. So as you'll recall, back in October, we had a training session with Orrin from TASB. He came down and we did a 3-hour training session, and we went through the board operating procedures line item by line item, basically. And so what you had emailed to you all for tonight is that we just need to basically take action to adopt the new board operating procedures that we had discussed at the October 28th, 2019 special board meeting. So at this time, if you have questions or comments that you would like to make about the board operating procedures, if you will raise your hand, and I see Ms. Huey, your hand is raised, so you may, and then Winkley and David Byer. So I'm going to start with Sandy Huey.
Good evening, everyone. All right. I've made a few notes and I have some questions, and I think just some clarification points more than anything else. On page 5, under section 1, election of board members, down at the bottom, number E, or letter E, sorry. criminal background checks for school board candidates and the right to refuse candidates based on criminal history records. That seems a little bit incomplete. It seems that everything else is a complete sentence in that section. And I believe it was meant to say that part of our packets, our candidate packets, would include a criminal background check, or anyone applying to be a school board candidate or whatever. I'm not sure of exactly how our wording was on that, but I think it needs a little bit more in that phrase to define
So-
what we're doing with criminal background checks.
So in the old board operating procedures, you think that the, it was worded differently?
No, I don't recall. It's just that I noticed when I was going through the whole packet that that phrase it was a phrase instead of a sentence, and I just think it needs a little bit more clarification. So maybe if we could work on the wording, not necessarily tonight, but just something to get that sentence clarified, that now we have it in our candidate packets that there would be a criminal background check for school board candidates, and that the board has the right to refuse candidates, or the district, whether it's the board or the district, has the right to refuse candidates based on criminal history records.
Okay, so I was trying to write that down on here. So criminal background checks will be performed
There you go. Okay.
for school board candidates, and the district has the right to refuse candidates based on criminal history records.
That's it.
So
Mhm.
does that sound okay?
Yes. Criminal
Okay.
background checks will be, yeah.
Performed for school board candidates, and the district
Yeah.
has the right to refuse candidates based on criminal history records. Okay, all right.
Since we know where that can lead us from past
Right.
experience. So yeah, I
Right.
felt that was important.
Okay.
Okay, on page 6, letter D. This kind of comes up a couple times, and I just feel like we need to be kind of clear on it. That regular public comment address the board time periods will not be part of special meetings or training sessions unless specifically stipulated by the board and included in the notice of the meeting. Do we need to readdress that because of the legislative changes that were done in the last session?
Well, I
Or
think
do we-
really what we could do is just add a clarifying comment that says regular public comment or address, and I would just maybe call it, I don't know, let me think through. I think what we need to say is it will be part of the meeting, but it has to be specific to an agenda item.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it. And we'll need that, I think, in a couple of other phrases later on, maybe. So
I think
because that
instead of
is what the
saying-
legislature, was wanted it to be clear on, it is that it must address an agenda item.
So maybe
And I
what we
kinda-
say
yeah.
is regular public comment / address the board time periods will be allowed at a special meeting or training session if it specifically addresses an agenda item.
Yes. And it seems like the last part of the sentence, really, unless specifically stipulated by the board, I don't know that there's,
Yeah, I would take that off, I think.
take that off. Yeah.
Because I think that's included in the notice on the meeting. I think it actually says,
Yes.
I've got that right here. Members of the public who desire to address the board regarding an item on this agenda. Oh, wait.
I think, Shannon, what you said, though, fulfills the intent of the legislature. And that's
Okay.
kind of what I felt like we probably needed to address.
Okay.
Okay. Next, on page 7, under developing board meeting agendas, letter A, it says the superintendent and executive staff shall prepare the agenda for all board meetings. Don't we have with the board president's input as part of that?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I think that's really important to have in there, because Shannon, you reflect us as the board in these discussions with the superintendent and staff. And I think that's really important to make sure that your voice is part of these procedures.
Okay. And really, Sandy, I don't know if you were going to touch on the next sentence, but all board members receive a draft on Thursday, not just the 3 officers.
Thank you. That was my next,
Okay.
that was my
Okay.
next one. That was my next one. So yeah,
Okay.
you got it. Yay. You got ahead of me.
Okay.
So that's great. So yes, but because I think in the past that was true that only the officers
Yes,
got it.
it was.
But as I recall, it's probably been about a year or so maybe now that we've started doing that all board members get a draft, which I think is just really, really great.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. Okay. I've
Yeah.
got those changes made.
Okay, and then on page 8, under the guidelines for the public hearing, the hearings for public comments during matters from the floor, there's a line there that says, generally board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting.
Uh-huh.
I feel like that probably needs clarification because I've actually been to other districts where their board does not follow the legal procedures of you may not respond to items
Okay.
from public comments unless they're on it. I mean, that's the legal guideline is you can't speak to you may not speak to an item unless it's on the agenda. That's just, and I've seen that. I mean, I know we do not do it, but I think because of past experience with an errant board member, I feel like we need to make sure that that's clarified.
Okay. So how would you word that? What would you like to say?
I would take out generally for first,
Okay.
for one thing,
And
and
just say
board
board
members
members do not
cannot respond to public comments unless they are an agenda item. And again, I know that that's something that you read when you do discuss the matters from the floor, but I don't think either people don't hear it or don't pay attention or think that we can answer them. And
Right.
we've had that happen so many times when someone will say, well, aren't you going to answer me?
Right.
No, we can't.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I've made those
So it
changes.
would just be, yeah, board members cannot respond to public comments during the meeting unless it's
Unless they are.
an
Okay.
agenda item. Okay.
Okay.
Then on page 11, hang on, changing pages here. Down at the bottom under number 9, sorry. Persons shall request to the presiding officer any handouts to the superintendent's executive associate for distribution to the board. I think there's some words left out of that. Shall present
Well, because
any
typically
written
what
handouts
happens-
to the executive associate.
Well, I think typically what happens is they say, "Can I pass out this paper?" And I say, "You can give it to Ms. Turner."
Yeah.
So
It's-
how do you? So the persons shall request to the. So it is. I mean, it shall request to the presiding officer if any person shall request to the presiding officer. Persons shall request to the presiding officer.
Any person requesting written handouts to the presiding officer will give them to the superintendent's executive associate for distribution. I'm not sure how. Do you see where I'm going with it?
Yeah.
It just,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Okay. Any written handouts will be.
Or how about person shall request. I'll work on that wording. We can
Okay.
go to the next one and then I'll work on that.
Okay. On page 12, there's 2 of them. On number C3,
Uh-huh.
the presiding officer, this is talking about addressing the board during matters from the floor, and it says the presiding officer shall recognize board members prior to any member asking clarifying questions or making statements to the board. And that goes right back again. Do we need to make sure
That
that
we
it's
ought to just
understood
delete
that
that.
that is a, okay, I'm more comfortable with that because we're going to go right back into the issue of an unagendized item.
Right. And then
Okay.
really that leads to number 4, because
Yes.
that comes up more under the item where it says board members requesting a report or something to be put on an agenda. So I
Right.
think, are you wanting to delete number 4 then?
Well, I think it's okay because, well, you know, actually you're right, because we could get into trouble with a board member asking for reports that the rest of the board does not support, that are time consuming, that are not correct, and those should be motioned and you know, presented as a motion and then voted on.
So I think maybe we need to delete 4 also.
Okay, because that is covered in our last item that's on our agenda, is about board members' items for
Correct.
requests for future agenda. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, and then in the very under D3, and it talks about the start time of the hearing following executive session until 6:30. Did we change that to 6:15?
Oh, yes. Thank you for
Okay.
catching that.
Okay. Then on page 14, under, and this is going back to, again, the parliamentary procedure, it's F3, the presiding officer shall recognize a board member wishing to comment. Is that, I'm assuming that that's under agenda items.
Yeah, I think that's not.
So
matters
that's just
from the
kind of
board.
like a formality. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just double checking on that one. And then number 7 on page 17. This is just kind of an aging thing. It's under B, board responses, and number 2, letters and faxes addressed to individual trustees. Could we just maybe say communication addressed? Because I don't know that we get faxes anymore, for one thing.
Sure.
Yeah. Communication or letters and emails, or
No, I think communication addressed to individual
covers
trustees.
everything, because
Right.
you know, we get almost everything by email these days. So I think
Right.
that would probably be the better way to go.
Okay.
Okay. And this, all of the new stuff that we added about individual requests for information and censuring a board member, I just wanted to say really came out great. And it's a very, it was a very difficult time that we went through. There's a possibility that that could happen again in the future. And to know that we've addressed it is really good.
Yeah, no, I think Orrin did a really nice job.
Yes, yes.
Putting on paper what we were articulating to him about what we were trying to accomplish. So, okay.
Yeah, that was a really, really long work session, but I think it was a very, very effective one. That's one of the deepest dives that we have taken into board operating procedures in a long, long time. So I think it was very effective, and I'm very, very proud of the work that we did. So, and that is all I had. I have a couple of typos, and Shannon, I'll give those to you offline.
Okay.
Nothing major, just, you know, a capitalization here and there, and that's about it. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sandy.
Okay, thank you.
Sandy Winkley.
Great job, Mrs. Huey. That was wonderful. Very thorough. And actually, she caught everything. I just wanted to reiterate what she said, you know, in reading over the changes that we proposed when we had our session. It was kind of like a walk down memory lane, if you will. I'm just really proud of the work that we did, and recognizing that there is a correct way to do our jobs. And we have to be held accountable to each other and to our community. And I think that from going forward, it just hopefully deters from behavior to repeating itself, and allows any board member that serves for any ISD to have guidance and to know if there is ever a question of what is proper and what is improper. And so I just want to say thank you to all of my colleagues, and I think we did a great job. And thank you to Owen.
Yeah, it was good. Okay. Anything else, Sandy Winkley? No, because you just muted.
I'm good.
Okay. David Byer.
Hello. I've got a couple of comments. Sandy, Huey got a lot of things that I also had picked up. But I had a couple more. One, I guess, in the statement of beliefs right up front. There were a couple of things that I wanted to look at. One of them was in the very first sentence when we say, Northeast Independent School District is home to some of the brightest students, the best families, and the most capable personnel a learning community could hope for. I almost want to strike the word some of the brightest, say is home to the brightest students. If everybody's agreeable to that, I mean, I think either way it's fine, but I think we say we have the best families and the brightest students and the most capable personnel. I think that's a pretty strong statement right off the bat.
Okay. I think that's a great change.
In the second bullet underneath that, well, you have the list of bullets of kind of outlining our beliefs, and we say the Board of Trustees believe, and then the second bullet says the board should be believable and trustworthy in the eyes of the community. I think we should just say, the Board of Trustees believe the board should be trustworthy. I don't know if we have to necessarily say believable again, but I'm open to discussion on that.
Does anybody else want to?
Particular matter.
Does anybody else want to jump in on that? Do y'all have or are y'all okay with?
Unless there's another word for believe, I think it just. I was looking more, I guess, the structure of how you'd read that sentence, and
I agree, David. I think it
says that we believe that we're believable.
Yes.
I think it might be if there's another word for believable and trustworthy.
I would say honest.
There you go.
The board should be honest and trustworthy.
Yes. And this is Terry Williams.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. So
Terry, I think that's a great word because it reflects exactly what happened to us last year.
Yes.
And dishonesty. So I think, and the other 6 of us were pretty darn honest. So I think that that's a really great word to put in there.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that is perfect. I don't remember something messed up with my page numbers, but I think Sandy said it was on page. It was under item number 6, conduct during board meetings. I think that was page 8, maybe.
Yeah, that's page 8.
Yeah, letter B, matters from the floor.
Yes.
Under 1, signing up to speak, we say the sign up, it's in the second paragraph under that. It says the sign up sheet will be posted at 5:30 and remain posted until 5 minutes prior to the start of the board meeting, which the meeting starts at 5:30. So I think there's maybe a timing issue in there or a wording issue.
So,
or is it 5 minutes prior to us coming back from executive session?
Yes. So typically, I think what that means is they can, when we've had our meetings in person, the sign up sheet goes out there and then we Peggy pulls the sign up sheet 5 minutes before we go back out into open. So generally 6:10. So, I mean, I guess we could be specific in the time.
Well, I was just thinking if you say posted, it'll remain posted until 5 minutes prior to either reconvening to open session or something of that nature that, because when we say the start of the board meeting, the board meeting started at 5:30. So we need to kind of
So would you rather be specific with a time of 6:10?
I don't know, because I would say 5 minutes prior to
to the 5 minutes prior to reconvening into open session.
I would just spell it out like that if that's possible.
Well, the only problem with that is if we have something in executive session that takes us into like a deep legal discussion or something like that. If we have several things that Rick is going over with us, we could have a long executive session. So it seems to me we should have a parameter so people know exactly what kind of time frame they have, because we don't know sometimes when we're going to come out of executive session.
So
we're
what if
lucky
we
to
say,
come out at 6:15 sometimes?
So what if we say the sign-up sheet will be posted at 5:30 and remain posted until 6:10 or 5 minutes prior to reconvening into open session?
I think that still leaves it open to too much
I think
variety there.
I would just say 6:10 or 6 o'clock. Give them 30 minutes, 6 o'clock.
Okay, we're just going to say the sign.
I think 6:10 might be fine. And the reason I say that is because later on the document, we do say that we will not convene into open session any earlier than 6:15.
6:15.
Yeah,
I agree.
And so
I like
just,
that. Yeah.
If we stay consistent, and I hear what you're saying, Terry, that, we say 6, but if we just say, I think if we say 6:10,
okay,
that is consistent with the timeframes elsewhere in the operating procedures.
Okay, I think that's fine. So
I think if we ever had a volatile meeting that was similar to like a boundary change thing where there might be a lot of people to sign up, and please bless us with no more boundary meetings ever. But hey, y'all haven't lived through those. I have.
No.
I think if we had something like that where we knew there was going to be an intense sign up, that might be something that where we could make an exception or allowance somehow. But I think putting it into our procedures that 6:10 gives an expectation, and 40 minutes. I mean, that's really plenty of time to sign up. So.
Okay. Now, here's the other thing about that. On our posted agenda, it says what time you can sign up. So for instance, for these meetings that we're doing on Zoom, if you want to sign up to speak, the link is open from 4:45 until 5:29. So if we have a regular board meeting, that verbiage, if we're meeting in person, the verbiage would say, you can sign up from 5:30 until 6:10. But just so you know, for right now, the agenda is, because of doing the Zoom meetings, they're being allowed to sign up from 4:45 until 5:29.
I don't see a problem with that. I think that's okay. Yeah.
Or is there a wording that we add to that allows a little bit of flexibility so we don't have to go back and revise the operating procedures every time a unique situation comes up? Or do we just, or are we allowed to do that through our posted to the notice of the meeting?
We're allowed to do that through the posted notice of the meeting.
Well,
that supersedes anything in board operating procedures.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Then I think that'd be fine. And the last item I had is under number 12, one of the new sections with the individual board members' request for information reports.
Can you tell me what? Oh,
I wish I could.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, individual board meeting request for information or reports.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's on page 19.
19 for everybody else. Letter D on that.
Okay.
Where it talks about the very last sentence in D, it says if the district provides records or documents, additional security controls may be required.
It's talking about records that are confidential.
Yes, records that are confidential. Do we need to have anything that finishes that sentence that talks about in compliance with such and such, FERPA or not even FERPA, but any kind of district policy that might relate to confidential information?
Well, I think that's probably why.
Do we need to spell out what those additional security controls are, or are we pretty much covered with just saying there are security controls and it'll be kind of on a case-by-case basis?
Yeah,
David, this is Sean.
Mhm.
I think I would keep it because again, over time things evolve. And
Sure.
so if you paint it out very, clearly with those controls right now, that may look different in 2 years from now. And so that allows it to be broad enough that we can fit technology changes and things down the line into it.
True. Okay. I don't have a huge issue with the way it's worded. I just wasn't sure if, we needed to spell that out with any more specificity, but
I don't think so.
I think I'm good.
Yeah. When I spoke to Rick about some of those things, when we look at them again as technology and the world continues to evolve, you have to leave a little bit of ambiguity in there to fit.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're coming back as technology and things change to continually update and list new things.
And I fully am aware that, the district has its, and the state even has policies on what can be provided to certain individuals and everything anyway. So as long as we keep ourselves flexible, so we don't have to keep coming back every time and amending that policy, that's fine with me.
Yes.
So.
Okay.
All right. That's all I had.
Okay, perfect. Okay, the next hand I see is Tony.
Let's see. All right, thank you guys. Hang on, let me lower. There we go. So I think that the only thing I had, and forgive me if it's already been mentioned and I just didn't hear it, my audio has been cutting in and out intermittently. But it looks like and this is really more of a question rather than kind of, hey, we need to really change this to read, but Roman numeral 17 letter A, where it says, no, I guess under the heading role of the superintendent's administrative assistant. Forgive me, I'm not sure what page number this could be.
Okay. Okay.
So
17.
it says, Roman numeral 17 letter A. It's the administrative assistant to the superintendent shall take the official minutes of each board meeting, work session, and public hearing, and will provide minutes for board review and approval in a timely manner. I just want to throw it out to the group. Do we want to define what timely means? I know like 2 weeks is probably unrealistic, but I mean.
Well, I would say that we are getting our minutes in a very timely manner now. Because if you've noticed, we've approved March's minutes at our last. So I don't know that we want to be specific. I think that behind the scenes, if we feel like it's been 6 months and we haven't seen any minutes, then we could say something. I mean, I don't know. Does somebody else have a thought? I don't think I would try and put a time frame on there.
Are we getting into, this is Sandy Huey, are we getting into crossing a line there?
What do you mean?
Wouldn't this be the superintendent's purview to tell his employees, get the job done? Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, but
I just want to make sure we're not overstepping
yeah, I do,
bounds.
but I think in that case, it's our. Well, in that case, I really wouldn't think so. I hear what you're saying, but I guess my answer would be no, because they're our minutes that we need to approve, and we would just maybe set the boundaries and then let Sean determine how we go about.
Good point.
Fulfilling those requirements.
Yes.
But again, I don't. I'm not. I don't need a definitive time. I was thinking about it, and I just thought I'd throw it out and see what the collective thought was.
Tony, I think it's this. Sandy again, Huey. I think you've made a really good point there, because we did run into problems, but those did end up becoming resolved. Gosh, I don't know.
In all fairness, problems in the past, not
this
currently.
Is true. This is true.
So I almost feel that because we are, communication is great. Transparency is beyond. Dr. Micah is always very transparent with us. And if there is ever a snafu in getting minutes out, the communication is there. I don't feel like we're lacking in that scenario as far as when our minutes are getting out any longer. And I think that as long as Dr. Micah, and we communicate with each other, I don't know that there's a need to dictate what is timely.
Okay.
But keep in mind, Sandy, this is David. Keep in mind, I mean, these minutes aren't necessarily just for us. If I'm not mistaken, these are posted
Right.
as, I mean,
They
this
are.
is public record.
So what is our?
And
I'm sorry, David. Go ahead.
it's okay. In Tony's thinking, I mean, I don't know why it necessarily would hurt to say, have them done 90 days, like 3 months, basically.
Oh, okay.
Or 120 days, like sometime in a 2 to 4 month period. If we don't have them by then there's probably other problems. But granted, there might be things that come up that prevent the administrative assistant from getting those completely done in a timely manner, whatever timely is. But if we just say, give it a 3 month window,
Yeah.
that's better than it was, a while ago.
Yeah. And David,
in the past.
Look, we don't even need that much time. If y'all want to do that,
right,
please know I don't have a problem. You can say 2 months. I think we'll have them every month to you, in
correct.
1 month. So barring some kind of thing, 2 months would give us ample time to correct a computer issue or any other thing
right.
in order, because, the meeting is videoed or recorded in this case, with the speaking. So we can go back. That's all we need in order to create them. So, so if y'all want to put a time, I'm fine. You can give us 2 months. That'll be plenty of time.
So what if I say blah, 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 and will provide minutes for board review and approval in a timely manner, no later than 2 months after the meeting?
I think
60
that sounds
days.
great.
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay. All right. I've got that added then. Anything else, Tony?
No, that was, I had a few, but Sandy Huey caught most of what I caught.
Okay. Awesome. All right.
Thank you guys.
Terry Williams.
Okay, I had to put my hand down.
Yes, please put your hand down. Is it tired from being up this whole time?
It is. But well, Tony kind of addressed, in a sense, my question, but and I say in a sense, so role of the superintendent's administrative assistant. Is that necessary to be in the board operating procedure, or is the purpose of that so that board members know how that person serves the board, and not, she or he is not the board's personal assistant? Is that really the purpose, I guess, of having that in the board operating procedure?
Well, because she is doing stuff for us. So I guess the reason
I'm just asking.
Yeah. So what it's doing is it's saying that she's providing clerical support to us, and she's maintaining our files, and she's assisting with this. So I think it's just probably outlining who is, I think, and Sandy Huey, you can speak to this because this is something that's been in the board operating procedures forever, or at least the 8 years I've been on the board. I think it's just outlining who's providing that support to us.
Shannon, I think you've kind of nailed it exactly right. I think it's also, because these procedures are on the webpage, on our homepage, on our board homepage and everything. It also helps everyone else. There's a lot of people who don't understand what a school board is, how it operates. why we meet, anything else. So anything that we can do to help, you know, no one ever comes to board meetings, we know that, but this helps define what that assistant does. And I think it's very important that it says it's the superintendent's administrative assistant. I cannot tell you how many times over the years I have had people ask me for my office number at central office. They think that school board members have offices at central office with our own staff. So, and that's a very common misconception. So I think that having that role there, and it also defines that she's the he is the superintendent's assistant, not ours, not the board's.
And Sandy, correct me if I'm wrong, but in other districts, sometimes a board member actually does the minutes, correct?
Yeah, I did the minutes for quite a while. I did them personally. Molly did them quite a bit. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, Molly is the exemplar of a board secretary. So I've got to tell y'all, I appreciate your comments about me tonight, because it would be in my dreams to live up to the standards of Molly. That would be Molly Pruitt, that the Roosevelt Library is named after. And she was our board secretary. She's who started the Northeast Educational Foundation, but she's board secretary to end all board secretaries. So
Terry, I think to answer your question, that's why it needs to be in there, is that in other districts, the board secretary or a board member does the minutes. In Northeast, we have my administrative assistant do it for you all.
Okay.
I think a phrase that I've heard now used quite often when it talks about a board secretary is, and this is not a formal title by any stretch of the imagination, but if you're in the business community, a board secretary is often called the corporate secretary. And that's because they don't take the minutes, but they are responsible for legal signatures on documents and things like that. So it's to differentiate from what is now an administrative assistant, what we used to call a secretary. So I've heard that terminology used. So
okay, and I wasn't really concerned about who's taking the minutes, but just, you know, the fact that it was that role and only that role was in there as under board operating procedures. So that's fine. And is the title administrative assistant or executive assistant?
It's administrative, because I asked Dr. Micah.
Okay, but that was all. That was all I
That's
had.
all you have?
That's it. Everything else has been addressed.
Awesome. Okay, so does anybody have anything else, questions or comments about the board operating procedures? I don't see any hands raised. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve changes to the board operating procedures as discussed at the October 28, 2019 special board meeting, and also the changes that we made today during our discussion today. So do I have a motion to approve as discussed?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hasso. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. All those in favor say aye.
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 Oh, I'm sorry. Should we do a roll call?
Yeah, I was going to say Tony Hasso says aye.
Okay.
Cindy Huey, aye.
Sandy Winkley, aye.
Terry Williams, aye.
David Byer, aye.
Omar Leos, aye.
Shannon Grona, aye. All right. The motion carries. And item 6, adjournment, and the time is 6:46. Thank you all for being here by Zoom. Talk to y'all later.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.